Hello, and welcome to the 360 Method, a podcast from Autism 360, where we chat about everything program, autism parenting, and catch up with cool team members. This week, I am lucky enough to be rejoined by the delightful Renae Tate, our mindset coach here at the program. Hello, Renae.
Hello, Ella. Hello to our beautiful parents out there. Lovely to speak to you today.
It is always lovely to speak with our lovely listeners. Thank you for joining me here today to talk about changing from chaos to calm. We are so glad to have you, lovely listeners, and we care about you. We care about your thoughts and experiences. So whether you're a program member or not, please reach out to us and drop us a line at hello@autism360.com. We love your feedback and we love to answer your questions. So before we get started sorting out your chaos, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on whose land I live and work, and from where this podcast is being broadcast today. And I would also like to just give the disclaimer that this podcast does not substitute for medical advice. If you are concerned about yourself or about somebody you care for, please do seek professional assistance. So today we are chatting about moving from chaos to calm, Renae.
Yes, so I think this is one of the things that a lot of our parents and carers really struggle with at times is how do I stay calm with all of these things going on? There's a lot of things out of my control. Our children, we can't always control everything that they do. And particularly probably a good timing with people after school holidays. Maybe you're just like, oh, I've survived the holidays. So we're going to look at some ways that you can create that calm for yourself, regardless of what's going on outside of you. So that's the thing that I really want to encourage is just to create your own zone of calm. And I think sometimes we think, well, when everything else outside of me is a certain way, then I can be calm. And this is called living at effect, where it's always based on what's happening on the outside of us and the outside world to be how we want to be and who we want to be. The key is to turn this around and look at living at cause, being the cause and the creator of your results and how you're feeling. So what I would like to encourage you today is to look at who do you need to be and what do you need to do to have the results that you want. And if you would like to have more calm in your home, in your environment, we're going to look at some tips of how you can do that today. So it starts with you, and it doesn't have to be when the kids are behaving or when this is happening, then I'll be calm. The calmer that you are as well, I'm sure you've noticed that our children are so sensitive. They pick up on our energy and our emotions. So the lovely thing about that is the calmer we are, the calmer everyone around us, they really pick up on that as well. So it's really important to create that. And today, just some tips around that. So one of the things I find a lot of the time is that parents who do seem a bit chaotic, they always say, I've got a lot of clutter in my home. And maybe their environment is chaotic and they're sort of living in a bit more clutter than what they would ideally like. So I think obviously our environment is really important. So I really encourage you to look at your environment first of all and just look at how can I create more calm in the environment? Maybe we could declutter and become more organized and find some ways to get on top of that side of things. And I've had some parents who have literally shown me around their house on the video going, look at this, Renae, look at this. And then they go, right, I've decided I'm going to let go of some of these things that they're hanging on to, realizing how much better they feel. They can think clearer, they feel calmer. And each time I speak to them as they're decluttering, they are just amazed at how much difference that has made. So first tip is maybe it's time to declutter, let go of some things, let go of some toys, whatever it is that feels like it's creating that chaotic environment for you. Another way to create your zone of calm is to let go of what you can't control. Okay, so looking at what's in your control and what's out of your control. And sometimes we can get very stuck in all those things that we really can't control. Yes, we can influence certain things, but there's some things that we just can't change. We can't control what other people think about us or our children. We can't control people's perceptions or even what's happened in the past. And I think letting go of those things and going, even our children's behavior to a degree, we can't always control that. But we can control how we feel in that moment. Are we going to get completely frazzled and react, or are we going to, stay nice and calm and centered in ourselves and respond in the best way that we can, or just manage our emotions and who we're being in that moment as well. And I know that sometimes it's not easy, we all have our moments, but I think the more that we can practice that, the more we can master those things that are definitely within our control. So there's two really good tips. I think the other thing I just wanted to really mention today is set yourself up for success. Like, look at what can I do each day to create my zone of calm. And before the day and everything else hits you, it's like just finding that time for yourself. And I know sometimes it's not easy, but maybe it's 5 minutes a day where you get up and do a little bit of meditating in bed before you get up, or you do some affirmations, or you do some journaling. Maybe you've even got time to get out for a quick walk, just looking at what can I do each day to really center myself and put myself in that nice calm state. And then put like a nice big bubble around yourself, like a bit of a energetic bubble where you're able to really, stay in that nice space yourself, regardless of what happens on the outside. And this is something I know myself over the years. I used to get very anxious throughout the day when my, whatever was going on with my children and different things like that. And there's a tip I've been sharing with parents about really disassociating from the emotions, like not embodying it, looking at it for what it is. Okay, this is a stressful situation right now, but we don't have to take that in. We don't have to actually absorb that into us. We can sort of keep that little bit of a disassociate from that and just observe it for what it is. And the more you do that, it's amazing. You can really be in the face of a lot of different things and still have that nice calm feeling within you. So look at those morning rituals. What could you do? And I know a lot of parents don't have a lot of time, but maybe it's just 5 minutes that you can do to just set yourself up for success, put yourself in that nice calm state, and you'll find that you're able to be on the front foot, everything flows, you're able to manage things better because you've centered yourself before the day has started. So they would be my top tips for today, Ella, around being calm, maintaining that calm. And what do you think? What are your thoughts on that, Ella?
Well, there was a couple of points that I really wanted to say around the clutter issue. And one of them is that there's been a lot of research into kind of how long kids play with a toy, or how long a toy can sustain a child's interest. And it's mostly funded by like toy companies, Fisher and Paykel, etc. Just to see what things interest a kid, what things don't interest a kid. And the less toys that a child has, the longer they will play with each toy. So the more that you reduce that kind of choice demand for your kids and make kind of ease that cognitive load of making these decisions, of always having 50 options that they have to sift through cognitively, the better it is going to be for their attention span, the better it is going to be for their capacity to get into a flow state in play. You're doing wonders for them by clearing out that clutter and giving them a clean slate to kind of let their imagination do the work of play. Don't try and, get toys to do the work of play, because the more toys, the less time they play with each toy. Isn't that wild? I would never have thought that, but it's totally true.
Absolutely. And I've had parents say, but they might play with this again, or I don't want to take away all their toys. And I think that's such a good point, Ella, because it creates a lot of chaos for the children too, I think, having a lot of that going on. So as you said, sometimes less is more, and it really allows them to enjoy what they do have more when they're not bombarded with so many toys that they've had sitting there for a long time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, my own 3 tips, but it's interesting that one of them is turning your home into a place that your family finds truly restful. So many homes are so filled with um, bits and pieces and noise and clutter and all these things that we can go home, but we're not actually resting. So, what is it that's turning your home into a place that's not restful for you? What's turning your home into a place that's chaotic and not calm? And obviously, there's so much important work that goes into the calming coming from internal, but why have a space that's working against that? And a restful space can look like anything. Maybe some people do find clutter restful. Sometimes I think maybe my partner finds clutter restful, but restful is different for everybody. And I think starting to tune in to what your family finds restful, especially if you do have autistic kids, that could be really different than what a typical household may look like. So maybe your child finds a room full of posters and toys and books and whatever really visually overwhelming, and so that might be for you, that might be an example of a really kind of richly provided for child, when actually that's not restful for them. So what do the people in your family find restful, and lean into that in an intentional way to kind of bring some calm from that chaos. So a lot of overlap with the things that you were talking about, Renae.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think just sometimes putting on some calming music and little things like that, we feel better and calmer, and so do our children, just to create that. I love that, Ella. It's like something that just a few small things could make a really big difference to creating that lovely environment where everyone feels calmer.
Absolutely. And the other 2 tips that I have are kind of connected, and they have a lot to do with being intentional around what goes into your life. So, we live in this age that is full of things that you can add in. There's always another class that you could go to. There's always another article you could read. There's always another podcast you can listen to. I mean, obviously ours. But start being intentional about the why behind your activities. Because if your activities are causing you to be in chaos, then what is the why behind them, and are they actually serving you? So my other 2 tips are: 1, change your default response from yes to let me get back to you. And so the reason that I say that is because we want to make people happy. As humans, we want to build connection, we want to be in relationship with people, build communities, etc. And so often, especially for mums with kids, we want to say yes. We want to say, yes, I can do that baking for the church fete. Yes, I can volunteer at the school canteen. Yes, 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 yes. And before we know it, we're living in this kind of swirling snow globe of chaos. And I think that changing our default setting from yes to let me get back to you is not saying no. It's not shutting out, the possibility of building relationship. It's not closing off community. What it is buying you space and time to make that decision with intention. So giving yourself just a minute so that you're not making a kind of reactive response, and you could decide, okay, is this something that if I add this into my life is going to create calm, or is this something if I add it into my life it's going to swirl my snow globe? Is it going to bring chaos? And I totally get that some people find it more difficult to say no than others, and I think that that's why saying something like, thank you so much for asking me to do that, I'll come back to you, is a really nice way to not say no, but also not say yes. It just gives you the permission to take the time you need to make the decision in a way that's helpful for you. And so that's a good way that you can then go on to start being more intentional about the why behind your activities. So those are my 3 tips. The change your default response from yes to let me get back to you. 2, start being intentional about the why behind your activities. And 3, turn your home into a place that's restful for your family. Not what you think restful should look like, but what your family finds actually restful.
Lovely. And I think that the being intentional and, looking at your why really helps you to be very clear about what your priorities are and where you're putting your focus and attention. And maybe you are spreading yourself out a little bit too thin, trying to please, friends, other family members, things like that. And I think just being very clear about those things, as you said, Ella, allows you to focus on the most important things and maybe takes away some of that clutter that is taking your time and energy in your everyday life. Because I think we have to be very intentional about where we put our time and energy when we've got children, and especially children that need a bit of extra support. Really, allowing yourself that time to focus on those key priorities is important. So I think they're really good tips to let go of those things that maybe aren't important right now and focus on those areas that are, so that you've got your priorities right, but also it creates that less chaos, a lot more calm, and allows you to get the results that you want as well. So really, there's a lot of tips in there today, but I think even if you were to implement 1 or 2, that will make a really big difference. And I think it's really important to just take action. All this is lovely to listen to and talk about, but maybe what are you going to implement? I would really encourage people to choose what they'd like to implement from that today.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a parent question this week that kind of in an interesting way links into this topic. It's from Chopra from Adelaide, who's asking, a number of things, but mostly asking about what happens or what should she do based on the fact that her son regulates his emotions through verbal stimming. It can be quite loud and often disrupts me in what I'm doing. I find the verbal stimming really stressful, but I know that he needs to do it to regulate himself. I find that I need to tell him to shush in order for me to stay calm. Do you have any thoughts? Interesting. It's almost auditory chaos for her, and I think this is a hard one, because it's about that. What does her son finds that vocal stimming restful? That's what he needs to feel at peace. Mm-hmm. Whereas obviously for Chopra, that's not restful, that's something that's disruptive to her. But and the reason that I mention this is that it's okay to have your own sensory needs, or you can't change the fact that stimming sound is stressful to you, and that's not bad. But what are you doing to take care of your own sensory needs so that you can feel rested as well? Could you find a type of auditory protection that will bring down the sounds to a level that you don't find as stressful? Or is there some other kind of strategy or stimming device that he could use, or something that's going to give him that same comfort, sensory regulation, emotional regulation that isn't going to be stressful to the rest of the family? Explore your options is what I was going to say to that. And if you haven't looked up loop earbuds, I would really suggest having a look for loop earbuds. This is not sponsored. I just think they're great because they bring down auditory sounds by a certain amount of decibels. So you'll still be able to hear, Chopra will still be able to hear her son if he needs her, or to keep him safe. But the overstimulation of the vocal stimming could be brought down to a more sustainable level. Do you have any thoughts about that kind of auditory clutter that's going on there, Renae?
Yeah, look, I think they're great tips, and it is an example of something that we can't always control 100%. So as you said, look at, well, what's in my control in this? So looking at those solutions, how can I reduce that? Maybe what can I do within myself to keep that nice calm within myself, regardless of what's going on outside of me. And I think that once we can really master that, that's a whole other way of living, really, to be able to keep that nice calm inside yourself. And I think, just looking at, well, how am I responding to that? Can I control how I am in that situation, or look at what can I influence just to reduce that as much as I can. And I think that's why it's important to set yourself up for success and find those things that really help you create that zone to start the day with, because then you'll have a much better capacity to deal with things throughout the day. You know what it's like if we start the day off on a bad note, everything seems hard and stressful, and it just sort of snowballs. So that's why I think just taking that time to set yourself up, create your lovely zone of calm for yourself, it's going to allow you to be able to manage those situations much better as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to hear from listeners about how they're going creating their zone of calm, their bubble of calm. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please do reach out at hello@autism360.com. We would love to hear from you. Renae, any final hot tips or points for parents before we go?
Well, I always love to ask the parents and carers, what is your biggest takeaway from today? So what's the biggest thing you're taking from today's podcast? And also, what can you action straight away from that? So maybe it's, I'm going to go home and make some changes in the house, or I'm going to commit to tomorrow setting up my lovely morning ritual where I create that calm for myself. Start implementing some of those things straight away, just to really get the benefits of that, and it really starts to get that positive success cycle I often talk about. Sometimes just making those little changes. So I just really encourage you to look at what would you like to action from that today.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Renae and I hope that you're having a great week. Please let us know if you have any questions. And until then, we will see you next time.
Thank you.